to question his, he had chosen that title for them. Never spoke to me again. I went into his SHI list, and I was persona non grata just for raising this little point. I then used the title for my next book, which I wrote, as you may or may not know, with Michael Weiss, another unfortunate experience. I was accused of doing things because he had ripped off other people's manuscripts without my even realizing it. But anyway, it doesn't make any difference now. The point being is that was unfortunate. But I had let him translate some of the documents that I had gotten a hold of, but I didn't know that he was using some other folks' versions to check his work with. He never bothered apprising me of that. That sounds like after the fact, mealy-mouthed apology, but it happens to be the fact. And I had told him, do not use anyone else's work. And he had students working on it at the University of Chicago who then promptly went and looked at other people's work. So all that is water way under the dam. But the Dead Sea Scrolls Uncovered, I thought, was a good title. It wasn't too, in your face, if you like. So he didn't use it, so I used it for my own book. Robert Eisler, The Messiah, Jesus, and John the Baptist. That was written in the 1920s. I think we have I put a Xerox copy of it in the library someplace because the original copy disappeared, I think. I had it Xerox and put it in the library at some point way back. I don't know where it disappeared to. But that is for his time and place, is so much original research went into that book, even though it's not necessarily widely respected among conventional scholars. He wrote that before the scrolls were discovered. He went into concentration camps in the Second World War. He came out in '47, his health broken, and he died around the time the scrolls were found. But if he had had the scrolls to work with, he could have gone as far further than I had gone, easily. This fellow was pretty much of a genius. What he tried to do was to reconstruct the original testimonies about Jesus and John the Baptist in Josephus' work, not the overwritten. That's where I get all my ideas about overwriting from him. Not the overwritten, reworked version that presently exists in Josephus. And so by going back and examining the contemporary sources and so on and doing an incredibly good job at that, I don't think his reconstruction necessarily is convincing, but the process that he went through to me was really an impressive process, and the knowledge that he had and the wide-rangingness of where he went was really an impressive thing. So he was working on the testimonies in Josephus, and then went back to see if he could figure out what Jesus had really said. The John the Baptist testimony, I think, is pretty authentic, but the Jesus testimony has been transformed by later copyists. Everyone agrees with that. It's what's called what's the word they use? An interpolation. What's called an interpolation. So that really is not reliable or authentic, but he felt there was something said at that point. I'm not sure that there was or there wasn't. But something has been written in that wasn't there in the original Josephus, and he assumes that the reference would have been negative in the original Josephus because Josephus didn't like the people he refers to repeatedly as miracle workers, pseudo-prophets. Josephus would never acknowledge anyone as being a real prophet. Pseudo-prophets, imposters, and particularly in the period from the 40s to the 60s before the war against Rome, his complaints against these people mount to crescendo. He's so aggressively against them. And he says that these innovators into the religion of the ancestors were more harmful even than the bandit bandit is another word for violent revolutionaries. The bandit thugs with whom they cooperated. And what they were trying to do, according to him, in two separate testimonies, one in the war and one in the Antiquities, I could find it for you, I've got it marked in my back, but I don't really want to scrabble through the books and look for them at the moment. But what they were trying to do, he said, is lead the people out into the wilderness, there to show them the signs of their impending freedom in one case, he says, in the other book he says redemption. So these miracle workers and imposters and pseudo-prophets who were in effect more dangerous even than the people he calls the bandits and the party insurgent people, were trying to lead the people out into the wilderness and show them the signs. Well, that's how Jesus is portrayed in the Gospels. Jesus is certainly portrayed, whether he was or wasn't, I don't know. But this is what we're doing, the historical Jesus. Jesus is certainly portrayed as someone who what? Goes out into the wilderness with the 5,000 or the 4,000 and shows the signs. But according to the Gospels, what are the signs? And even the Gospel of John constantly goes on about the signs Jesus is doing. For instance, and these are the signs which the Lord did in Cana of Galilee. The Gospel of John says several times. And at one point he says turning water into wine. In John, I think at the marriage, we'll look at those passages. But in the synoptic, we all know the difference now between synoptic and John, synoptic based on the same source. But it isn't so clear cut as this. The three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, are largely synoptic, but they sometimes overlap with John as opposed to the other two, which is really weird, particularly Mark, but even sometimes Luke. So it's a very complicated process. For a long time, several decades back, people were trying to determine which gospel came first. And most of the scholarly works are dominated by, attempts and questions and analyses of that kind. And then there was form criticism and redaction criticism. This is all part of the New Testament vast literature underpinning that we have in the academic world. So there were all these attempts